Then let's start with some introductions, starting from your corner. Dirk?
Hello, my name is Dirk Findeisen. I'm EVP for Middle East and Africa and Asia Pacific for the whole banking portfolio of MSG. And my second hat is to be, let's say, the spokesperson for the regulatory compliance topics around non-financial risk management. So anti-financial crime, regulatory compliance, and all those topics. KYC we heard already, so thanks for your time.
Hi there, I spoke a little bit earlier, but I'm Roisin Levine, I'm head of EMEA at Wise Platform. That's the part of Wise that offers our correspondence service to banks. And for those of you who may already know, Wise is a global fintech organisation, HQ in London, and we have people around the world.
Yes, my name is Carly van der Riet. I'm the head of Process Excellence and Digitalisation Department within ING, Wholesale Banking, so really international corporate clients. And our location is somewhere over there. So I think they're closer to the Belmar station and to the Arena football station.
No, I just introduced myself 50 minutes ago. So Viktor Smits, head of the Dutch branch of Revolut. Thanks.
Lovely. Thank you so much. So then let's start with questions. And very curious, Carly, from your point of view and your experience, what are the critical success factors that one needs to take into account during transformations and for the processes that transformation supports to make sure all this works?
Yeah, process management is really key to make sure that digitalization is successful. And there are three things behind it. First of all, AI needs structure, and processes provide that structure. So when implementing AI, it's important that it's embedded in the full end-to-end process rather than being a standalone solution, because otherwise it becomes more of a productivity tool instead of that it really transforms the way that we work. And secondly, AI doesn't fix broken processes, it just skills them. So if your process doesn't work well, AI will just make it go faster. So you have to make sure that process analysis and process redesign are part of implementing AI to really have a successful end result. And last but not least, we also discussed about it, AI comes also with increased risks, like autonomous decision making that we have, but also low quality output is a risk. And it really asks for clear roles and responsibilities, accountability, also ownership of an end-to-end process, and that is what good process management really provides for.
So structure, ownership, clarity, and I know that when it comes to international businesses, everything becomes times and times more complicated. So curious how you manage this, Roisin, and what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, and I think some of this comes back to what I was explaining about our infrastructure and quite how much we need to do to scale and kind of extrapolate away some of the complexity, especially in cross-border payments. So things that we focus on is our licenses around the world, having people on the ground, but having kind of experts understanding kind of what are those nuances. And this is the really hard part to do, right? And that's the part where for many banks, they're kind of relying on us to take away some of that complexity themselves and think about kind of how they can do that in an easier way. Wise has, as I said, the privilege of focusing on one thing. And when you focus on one thing, you can figure out how to do that thing very well and get close to the detail. But it's very difficult otherwise to kind of be a master of everything in many ways. So us, it's really about solving that pain point of cross-border payments. And there are nuances to each market and regulations and thinking about each payment scheme. But we've been able to dig deep and be able to do that. And I think that's the real key for a fintech or a provider of a service. If they can be an expert in one thing and really kind of niche down on that, that's when they get very, very capable.
Fantastic. So focus. And talking about focus, right now we have AI at play, so things are becoming even more complicated. So in your opinion, Dirk, what changes right now with the upcoming of AI?
So I guess first topic would be, from my perspective, that we are often underestimating or misunderstanding the impact of AI. So first of all, main focus is to automate processes, which is okay, it's obvious, but that won't change the business. So you have to think about automating the decision processes. And decision processes are totally different than the normal, let's say, operational processes that you might want to automate with AI. So I guess those are the topics, as Carly already mentioned. So if you have a bad process, a bad business process, and you're using AI, it won't transform this bad process into a good one. It's just how to implement AI within your operating model. And the other factor that is often underestimated is the way AI is exposing your weaknesses of your existing business model. Because if you have fragmented data, AI will expose you with those fragmented silos. If you have problems in responsibility structures, in accountability structures, AI will expose it. And it will expose you much faster and much more brutally than a human counterpart would do that in the past. So that are, from my perspective, the most important topics to, let's say, have in mind. But that's on a more general level. If you have a scaling business model like ING, so Carly, what are you doing to support, let's say, your AI ambition that ING actually has announced? So.
Yeah, well, we have many programs, initiatives running, and it really looks promising. And Marjolein Appelboom, she will, later on in the panel, will tell more about it. Let me circle back to process management. Yes, that's really a key enabler also for AI. And we have been building process management capabilities over the past year to make sure that we can scale digitalization and also improve client experience. So we started with more than 100 processes within wholesale banking. And looked at them and really wanted to make this transparent, because you cannot improve what you don't understand. So that's why we also created a maturity model that really looks at things like the degree of standardization of a process, if there's an end-to-end dashboard available, and so on. And then we got really that transparency in our process landscape. And then the key next step is, of course, start improving it. And that is what we started already a couple of years ago, with really clear goals and also governance around it. So we have global process leaders, we have top-down really goals on increasing our process maturity. And we keep on measuring that and also having the performance dialogue.
That's a very thorough approach. And when we often talk about digitalization, we think about established companies that are trying to reinvent themselves. But it can hit quite differently if you're a relatively new player. So curious about your experience here, Viktor.
Thank you. Well, it's certainly an interesting question for Revolut. I think when I speak to most people, they will say, well, it's only 10 years old. How do you have legacy issues? And sorry, I've been talking all morning and my voice is a bit drowned. And I can assure you, after 10 years, you have to rebuild your bank from scratch multiple times over and over again. And we have massive scalability and scaling issues. Once you start onboarding, I think it's roughly 1 million customers every 17 days. Things don't go the way that you expected them to do years ago. So the way that we do it, I think we focus on 3 main things. And the first thing is you have to build your solutions in a very scalable way, but also in a very clean way. And it's something I see many banks not really do it. They don't spend enough time on building solutions that are clean, really clean. And I mean, even the slightest manual intervention you should try to avoid. And these ugly solutions, they will start to compound and generate friction that after years is very hard to maintain. So that's the first thing, to set the foundation right of all your processes and products. The second thing, and that's also a bit interesting, we don't really have a transformation team. We don't even have a single person with transformation in their job title. So we have operations managers in each team, and they really own the processes and the tools and everything from that team, and they drive change from there, and they really understand the complexities. So we make transformation just part of the core business. It's not something separately somewhere else. And then the third thing is the culture, the people that you have. And at Revolut, we tend to hire people who can resist change and who really go with a high pace. And it's not always easy to find these people, but we do see at certain banks where you've been doing the same thing for 10 or 15 years, it's very, very difficult to change things. And at Revolut, we try to change things every 3 months. And so once you get used to that, change is quite obvious and straightforward. And we have performance cycles every 3 months, and every 3 months we change the KPIs and we double the targets. And that just forces the team to completely rethink what they are doing. And that way, change is just a natural thing and transformation follows.
I'll be honest, it's a bit of relief to hear that even Revolut has legacy questions. Then over to you, Dirk. You have a lot of experience dealing with organizations with legacy problems.
Yeah, so unfortunately, that comes with my age. I think we have some paradigms that we need to change. So our, I would say, mental models that we have, especially on the CIO, CTO levels, need to change. And I had, over the last few years, some discussions about AI and agentic and what does that mean in regards to this whole legacy standardization topic, because we've all been trained, at least if you are at least somehow my age, and if you're still alive. Yeah, that's my battle I have with my kids. You might have something different, something similar. So the main understanding that we had is building software and building or maintaining and customizing software is extremely expensive. So avoid individual software, avoid building your own software, go and get standards, get into those big standardization, implementation, rollouts, and so on. And then AI and agentic happens, and that will change the game totally, because you have to think about now that you have to admit that software building and maintaining is not that expensive anymore. But the degree of customization will dramatically increase. The main question is how do you govern this hundreds or thousands of standalone applications built by AI or by your agents, because that's the scale of AI. And that's changing the whole cost paradigm from expensive software maintenance and building approach towards the whole governance business, and how to govern those processes, how to stay reliable, how to get it done explainable, because you can hardly afford to just do some stuff here for marketing, some stuff here for regulatory compliance, and some stuff here for other approaches. You need to make sure that you get it all under control, more or less.
Sounds fair. Now let's talk about the future. So what do you think are the biggest challenges that banks need to pay attention to in the next 3 to 5 years? Over to you, Roisin.
Well, coming from Wiser's position, kind of what we see is basically an opportunity and a challenge is this idea of payment still being a really important part of the customer experience in banking. So it's often the day-to-day interaction that the customers have. And if you get that interaction right, then that sets you up in a very good way. So the thing that we talk to banks about, and the thing that we've obviously focused on, is this idea of kind of I suppose, remittance style payments, so retail cross-border flows, that sometimes gets less focus, if I'm honest, than the larger corporate flows, but is a super important part of kind of daily banking in a lot of people's lives. And the idea is if you can solve that very well, you can give the kind of experience that customers do now expect, which is that they expect it to be low cost, they expect to know the amount of money arriving on the other side of the world, and often they actually expect that now to become instant or at least very, very fast. Then you are providing the right kind of experience, and that then lends itself well to the fact that they will use and enjoy your banking services more holistically. So we sort of see there being an opportunity in this space to make that experience better in many ways, and ensure that customers then are thinking about their banking app as that kind of one-stop shop place to go for other parts of their financial lives.
And from your point of view, Viktor?
Well, there's probably a few big trends that might have a big impact going forward. One that we don't talk about too much anymore, but is quite active, is still central bank digital currencies. The project is still quite live, and the implications might be very big, I think, for the entire sector. So that's one to keep an eye on. Second item, geopolitical tensions are not really going away. European sovereignty, big on the radar. So we have this push towards our own payment rails, moving away from Visa, MasterCard, and doing things ourselves. And I think Revolut is trying to jump on that train and try to make a difference. What's also going to be interesting to see is how harmonization across Europe is going to play out. We have AMLA, who just started working. Let's see if they're able to harmonize things, flatten a bit the barriers that we have between countries, and maybe increase competition. So that certainly is a topic that we are watching with great interest. And then last point, what Dirk mentioned, agentic AI it's so big, and we could talk about it for days without saying much, unfortunately. But I'm sure that over the coming years, we'll see the right playbooks and the right examples being developed, and we'll start to see the first impact. The challenge will be to turn it into something that will reduce cost so that we can give more to our customers. And right now, it's mainly a cost driver.
Sure. Thank you so much. And by the way, if you want to check what's going on with central banks' digital currency, please check EY CBDC tracker. But otherwise, thank you so much, Viktor, Carly, Roisin, and Dirk, for your thoughts and for sharing your experiences. And I think nothing stands between us and lunch, right? Fantastic. Applause, yeah.